Just when you thought I couldn't look like any more of an can always get worse. All right, today we're going to the most efficient way to train your traps, because if you're just throwing them at the end of shoulder day, probably means you suck at training shoulders and you feel a lot of the exercises in your traps anyway, so you figure, why not? Or if you're doing 2 or 3 exercises on a back day, you're wasting a lot of precious time you could be using to build a bigger, wider back. So I'm going to show you how to turn your warm-up sets for back into some ridiculous trap exercises. You ready? Let's get after it. So first things first, we got to go over the anatomy of the muscle, because there's a lot of guys that look like those wrestling buddies we used to powerbomb the shit out of as kids because they look great from the front, but once they turn to the side, they disappear. And that's because their sole focus is on developing that upper trap, which is responsible for elevating the scapula, i.e. the guy at the gym that does heavy shrugs and makes loud noises.
Loud noises!
But they end up neglecting the middle, which is responsible for bringing the scapula closer to the midline or adduction, and lower, which compresses the scapula. But those two are the ones we can be the most efficient with and hit them without adding any additional exercises. And I can't stress this enough. Don't skip these, because down the road, you're going to run into issues with your posture. And even more important than that, you're going to look stupid. So let's start out with that mid trap, because we know that any movement you do where your hands are away from your body and you pull them towards you, you're going to get some engagement. Those scaps are going to be forced in, and even if you wanted to screw it up, you couldn't. But we also know that unless you're a reckless asshole, you're going to do at least one warm-up set. So instead of just chalking that up to a wasted set, we can break the movement down into 2 separate parts and really make it count. So to start it out, you're going to keep a slight bend of those elbows, pull those shoulders back, and flex your traps. And you'll quickly find that this actually becomes a working set, because even though it's a very short movement, it's incredibly taxing. And then from there, you finish off the row. But because those traps are already engaged, it puts an onus on the rest of your back to contract the weight up, and that light weight you were warming up with is now kicking your ass. And to make matters even worse, as you row back, the contraction in those traps intensifies even more. And if you're good, you're probably only going to burn 1 warm-up set per exercise, but you're going to find that there's a lot of movements on back day that have the exact same path. So even though that seated cable rows are my favorite way to do this, I'm still going to do it on my warm-up set of lying dumbbell rows or cable rows or anything similar. But with that being said, if this is something that's underdeveloped on you, don't be afraid to throw in a second set, because even though we're doing this for traps, the rest of your back is going to hate you as well. So since we know that those lower traps compress, any movement where our hands are above our heads and we're pulling straight down is a great candidate for that same style of warm-up set, like a lat pull down or a bench-assisted pull-up, except pull-ups. Unless you're one of those Michelob Ultra men and you're incredibly light and you can do 50 of them, you're going to go from doing 15 to 4. And I still work these in quite a bit, but that's because of my own self-hatred. Instead, I would do a regular set of pull-ups and then do these after, or do a couple before and then go right into your set. And for upper traps, I find the best thing is to load up the bar and do nice, slow, controlled deadlifts. They should already inherently be a part of your back day. If they're not, you probably can't do deadlifts. If that's the case, I would do some direct work by grabbing a dumbbell and doing unilateral shrugs. That way you can not only contract up, but wrap that trap around your body, get a better contraction. And then you're doing them unilaterally so you can focus on each side and make sure you grow them evenly. Oh my God, you shaved your head. And as for the reason I shaved my head, as my hair started to get thinner, I thought, that's a fight I don't even want to try to win. And the only thing I can relate it to is when you're a young man and you go to the strip club, it is your goal to get a dancer's number. I don't know why, it's just every young man's goal. Until you actually do, you invite her to meet you at the mall and you realize without the club lights and all the glitter, she's not a catch. Now, not only do you regret all the money you spent on lap dances, but you also regret buying her that fucking Wetzel's pretzel as well. Also, if you haven't got a chance to check out the 30-day garage program, I'll leave a link to that below. It's 30 days, 20 videos, $20. Pretty damn simple. And if you need more ideas for different trap exercises, here's the video. Also another one for back, but most importantly, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and get after it, get growing. Talk to you soon.
Loud noises!